OMEGA Speedmaster Moonwatch Apollo 11 50th Anniversary. There are many Omegas, and many of them are Speedmasters. Of those Speedmasters, many are Moonwatches, and of all the Moonwatches, a significant amount are special editions for the Apollo program. Not only is this one of them, but it's also the coolest Omega you can get today. Here are 3 reasons why. Is there anything more late 60s, early 70s cool than brown and gold? Like Rolex's GMT Master Roman 2 CHNR, this Omega Speedmaster Apollo 11 50th Anniversary takes that same distinctly warm color palette and transforms what is usually a very stark and functional watch into something completely different. And the difference is apparent all the way down to the details. This isn't just a Speedmaster with a gold case and bracelet and a brown bezel for the PS $26,480 asking price. Omega has really gone to town with it in a way befitting the achievements of Messrs. Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins. We can start with the gold itself. It's not just plain, 18-karat gold. No, that would be too boring. It's what Omega calls Moonshine Gold instead. No, it's not gold that's been smuggled in the back of a car and sold at a speakeasy. It's still 18-karat, still gold, but it's alloyed with a few secret ingredients to give it just the merest touch of red. It's so warm you could melt chocolate on it, which is exactly what it looks like Omega has done for the bezel. Because the inlay isn't just anodized aluminum like the standard watch. It's lovely, glossy ceramic. The numerals are not just printed on. They're laser engraved into the ceramic and filled flush with gold, unlike Rolex's recessed dirt traps. And the gold bleeds further into the watch, because the dial itself, plus the hands, markers, and even the logo, are all hewn from the same Moonshine Gold. If you ever need to prove it, it even says so just above the center hand stack. But this is no instrument built for wearing in high-stakes environments. This is a piece of jewelry to have hanging loosely from the wrist, and so the luminous paint in the markers makes way for contrasting black details, fashioned exclusively from the glassy mineral onyx. The front is pretty cool in a laid-back, let's not force the moon landing thing down people's throats kind of way. But it is a moonwatch after all, and so this timepiece couldn't get away without mentioning it, but when it does so in style. Before we get to that, though, we need to find it, and it's on the back that we do. You almost don't notice anything other than the immense eye candy that is the caliber 3861, a thoroughly modern and wound mechanical chronograph if there can be such a thing. It gets chronometer certification. It gets a free sprung balance with silicon coil, anti-magnetic to 15,000 Gauss, oh yes, and it's plated up to the eyeballs in gold. If there was ever a way to make a movement look even more impressive in FP, Jern knows this sits with gold, and by dipping all the plates in the stuff, it leaves the many monochrome levers and screws standing in contrast against them, making it easier to appreciate the workings of the mechanism and try to understand how it all works. And there's no better format to try and figure out a chronograph than a horizontal clutch manual wind movement like this one. As for the anniversary thing, it almost disappears under the glow of all that moonshine, but it's there around the outside. You've got the anniversary date range in red, opposite the limited number of 1014 weird number. We'll get to that later, but it's the ring inside of that we're really interested in, between all the usual stuff about anniversaries, and the being the first watch on the moon. There's a depiction of 2 worlds, ours and our satellite, the moon. Our world is nicely depicted in blue and gold on one side, but it's the moon that demands a second look. It's not a picture like the Earth is, it's a piece of rock that came from the moon, no less, known as a lunar meteorite. The fragment was torn away from the moon by one of the many impacts that gives our orbital neighbor its characteristic pattern. Never mind the cherry on the cake, it's the moon on the Moonwatch. So yeah, it's a pretty cool watch. But you might be wondering where Omega got the idea to dress up a Speedmaster in an outfit that hasn't been on trend since the middle of last century. Well, here's the coolest part of all this isn't the first Omega to look like this. In 169, after the successful first landings on the moon, which you may have heard also made the Omega Speedmaster the first watch worn on the moon, Omega decided to celebrate with a run of very special Speedmasters limited to just, you guessed it, 1014 pieces. Several were given to the astronauts, one to the president, and the rest were distributed to the public. This watch too had the gold case, bracelet and dial, onyx markers, and burgundy bezel, exactly like the modern version, which makes this new one the perfect send-off to the last 50 years between the moon landings and now. And so many of the little details from the watch make it into this one here. The arrangement of the bezel is as it was late 60s. The applied logo as well. Even the tiny little OM print either side of Swiss, made standing for or massive, or solid gold is carried over from that original, a detail that no one except you lot obviously is going to ever notice. So what could be cooler than not only having a Moonwatch with a real piece of moon in it, or one made out of gold with laser-etched ceramic and layered with onyx, or one with an evolution of that original movement with all the modern frills, than one that not only honors the 50th anniversary of the moon landings, but the 50th anniversary of the watch given to the astronauts as well. Never mind all the Apollo business, the Moonshine Omega Speedmaster 50th anniversary is just out. And not the coolest watch Omega has for sale right now. It's not cheap, but it does somehow manage to take an iconic piece of watchmaking design and completely refresh it even if it is in clothes that have been in the closet since the 1960s.